All right, people. Review of the week time. So, a lot to get into, an awful lot to talk about. We obviously will start with a review of said weekend's fights. Now, primarily we're going to be talking about Dave Allen and Johnny Fischer. I know. But we do have to talk about some of the fights that were on the undercard here. So, I caught the very end of this guy Jimmy Sain's fight. Now, it looked alright to me. I can't say truthfully that I've seen many of his pro fights, so this was kind of the first look I got of him. He looks okay. He definitely appears to have some power there, but the guy he was in there with did a very good job of being able to survive. So I can't really say any further, but I probably will watch him again though. Because he was an interesting character. I have to say he was interesting, right? Now I didn't see, but Shannon Ryan made her return to the ring. Now a lot of people are kind of hot and cold with that girl. Some people say she's not that bad in terms of a fighter. The fact you have to say she's not that bad in terms of a fighter kind of tells you all you need to know about said fighter. But I didn't see her fight, but she was down in round number 3 and won this fight on points. Does anyone know? Okay, the referee had it 77-74. You know what? Whenever I see a referee scoring a card, and it could be legit, but it's that close, you're kind of like, So I didn't see her fight, but that is Shannon Ryan. From what I have seen of her, don't expect big things. But I could be wrong on that one. Probably not though. Kieran Conway fought Jerome Warburton. That was actually a decent scrap. Warburton started off very quick in the first round. Kieran Conway, I've seen many of his fights. I remember he had that fight with Ted Cheeseman. A lot of people actually felt though Ted Cheeseman did do enough to win the fight. It was many years ago now. It was like 2019. You know, and Kieran Conway, he's been around for a long time. He was really kind of fighting on these Eddie Hearn shows at a very young age, and he's just stuck around. He's clearly, judging by what I've seen there, he's a level above domestic level. He clearly is, and he's clearly carrying a lot of power. I don't know how he ever made 154, because he is massive, even for middleweight, he's massive in there. So, Kieran Conway, it was a decent performance. George Liddard, I got to talk about him. He fought this guy, Aaron Sutton. Now, Sutton had one defeat going into this fight, but in 19 wins, he lost to Warburton actually back last year. Actually, where did he? That was on a Chris Sanigas show. Okay, so yeah, very undersized, no punching power. You can tell that, but I will give him credit. He was as game as anything. He was down in the first 2, or he was down in the first 30 seconds. And I thought it was a heavy left hook. He kept getting hit with left hooks by George Liddard. And I just kept thinking, oh my God, like this kid is tough. He's rugged. He's got something about him. But yeah, there was a big difference in class, a big difference in size, big difference in punching power between the two. George Liddard's not a fighter I've seen a crazy amount of. He's from Billericay in Essex, and yeah, so I'll keep an eye on him. Like, I think I might have seen maybe 1 or 2 of his fights. I haven't seen many of them now, I have to say. A lot of his fights I've not really seen a crazy amount of, but look, I'll keep my eye on this guy. There's talk that he's going to fight Kieran Conway next. That could be actually a really good scrap. It would be a really good scrap. I wouldn't mind seeing that actually. And then we get to the main event, Johnny Fischer versus Dave Allen 2. So, I already gave my review on this fight, so you don't need me to tell you what you already know. Johnny Fischer lost, obviously. Now the question is what happens next for both guys. I did a video this morning when I woke up and had some breakfast and then did a video, and I just said that if I was Dave Allen, I'd be maybe considering Frank Warren. He's got the best stable of heavyweight fighters. I mean, he pretty much owns the heavyweight division with the exception of AJ Nusek. So I was kind of like, why doesn't he just jump ship and go Frank Warren? But apparently he's now signed another promotional deal with Matchroom, which is not a terrible thing, to be honest with you, at all. For Eddie Hearn, I mean, like, it's not like you've signed Moses Atelma or something like that, but it's a heavyweight at the very least who can do numbers in Doncaster. You can do numbers pretty much anywhere with the right guy. You don't really have, I mean, you got that new heavyweight, that Leo Atang, but you're not going to put him in with Dave Allen straight away, I would imagine. I think Dave Allen, there is still life in him. There's definitely still life in him. He's obviously matured now as a fighter. He is obviously a father now, so he's obviously fighting for his missus and his 2 kids. So I think we will hopefully start to see a little bit more out of Dave Allen. At the end of the day, these two performances, he hasn't taken punishment. In fact, really, when you look at Dave Allen, the last punishing fight he was in was probably the David Price fight 6 years ago. He's not really taken too much punishment since then. He really hasn't. He's had a couple of fights on, I think it's a Dennis Dobson or something like that, the guy's name was. He was doing fights on Fight Zone for a while. Done a couple of little nothing fights on them. He fought Fraser Clark, and although he quit in that fight, he didn't really shift any serious punishment or anything like that, so you can, all right there. And again, both Fischer fights, he didn't really shift any serious damage or anything like that. So he's not had too much wear and tear over the last couple of years. I mean, prior to that, holy crap, was he having a lot of wear and tear. Holy yo. But yeah, over the last couple of years, he's been all right. He's been all right. So let's see what he can do. Let's just see what he can do. Let's see who they match him with, and could he make a go? As I said in the video I did this morning, I would be looking at him versus the winner of, potentially challenging, I should really be saying, the winner of Adelaide TKV. I don't see why not. I think he's on a similar level to those guys, to be honest with you. And I'd quite like to see it, to be honest with you. I'd like to see him challenge the winner for the British title and, you know, see what happens then after. You know, he won his first title of sorts last night, a WBA cricket title. It's still an achievement nonetheless. But yeah, I'd like to see him go for a British title. That'd be nice. I think he's talented enough. He's always been talented enough to get that. So now I genuinely, again, I don't see why not. So that is what I have to say with Dave Allen. As for Johnny Fischer, I stand by what I said, you know, in the video. Go right down to the small hall scene, because for me, there's a problem with stamina there. I don't know whether that's due to nerves, anxiety, feeling the pressure. I don't know what it is. You know, his dad is the ticket seller, really. You know, amazing, isn't it? His dad is the ticket seller. All right. But he's the guy who gets all the people into these fights, and maybe he needs to just be away from that for a little while. At the end of the day, he's had no real amateur experience at all. So, you know, he's not used to this. So he's hitting the ground running as a ticket seller without, you know, the kind of... Anthony Yarde didn't have an extensive amateur career, but you look at him in his early fights. I mean, he fought on one of Canelo's undercards. I think it was when Canelo fought Liam Smith in an empty stadium. So, you know, it's no pressure there. It's different. It's very, very different than, you know, going and doing what Johnny Fischer is doing. If that fails, then I would go down the Misfits road, because I think Johnny and his dad, more so his dad, would fit in very well in the Misfits kind of circles, so to speak. You know, just Misfits is gimmicky as hell. That's what it is. It's gimmicky as hell, and Johnny Fischer, for me, fits in that, because he is an Essex gimmick. He is. We've known that about him for years. So I think he'd fit in just fine in Misfits. I do respect the fact that Johnny Fischer's always been honest about himself, that he's never tried to pretend like he's something he's not. He's always likened himself to maybe a championship football team. You know, they're not a Premier League side, there's the championship side, but on their day, you know, much better teams like Man City, Arsenal, they'll have to work to beat them, right? They'll still probably beat them, but they'll have to work for it. And I like the fact that Johnny Fischer is open about that. You know, never mind what Eddie Hearn was saying about he's a world-class prospect. No, he was never that, Eddie. He knocked out Alan Babbage in a round. And just on Alan Babbage, I mean, yo, do you remember a couple of years ago when Alan Babbage was kind of, you know, on all the Eddie Hearn shows, that they wanted to do Alan Babbage versus Dave Allen? Could you imagine? And let this be a lesson to any boxers watching. Do not go doing an Eric Molina, because Eric Molina is better than Johnny Fischer. He's better than Alan Babbage could ever hope to be. But he went into a fight with Alan Babbage with no intention of winning, no intention of trying. And I'd say he is probably still kicking himself to this day that he didn't try at all against Alan Babbage. Because if he had tried, like the Eric Molina who fought Wilder or who fought Thomas Adamek turned up, man, he'd have knocked Alan Babbage spark out. So that's just something that I was just thinking of as well. So let's go and get into some boxing news. And, you know, I'm doing this early in the day today because I'm doing something this evening. So I've had to slam this phone on charge. Like literally, I've had to slam it on charge, and I don't have much juice in it. So I'm hoping I get enough. And I'm going off memory as well with a lot of things. So I'm hoping I have the memory to be able to get enough news in. But let's go and just have a little talk about some of the news that's happened this week. So obviously, we saw a clip of Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury, obviously, showing that he's back in the gym. And interestingly, his dad was in that clip with him. Now, Tyson Fury in that clip looked to be in particularly good shape. He looked to be in particularly good shape, and by his standards, again, as I said, he's never going to be Mr. Universe in terms of abs, six-pack or anything like that. But he did, by his standards, look to be in good shape. And John Fury is there as well. So this has me asking a lot of questions. Is John Fury now back in the team? Because Tyson obviously got rid of him for the Alexander Usyk rematch, which, again, for me, I thought was the correct decision. Some would argue, I know John Fury has, that Tyson looked worse in the rematch, that he didn't look good at all in the rematch, and that he was heavier and this, that, and the other. Well, maybe Alexander Usyk was just better in the rematch, which I think is pretty accurate. I think that Tyson Fury probably just is always going to be coming up short against Alexander Usyk. But maybe Tyson Fury is thinking, right, I need to get as much as I can into this team. You know, as I said before, too many cooks spoil the broth, but hey, and he looks to be brought his dad back in. I don't know if that's going to work out too well. Obviously, Sugar Hill is still there, we know that, but I don't know necessarily if that's going to work out too well. So we're seeing Tyson Fury back in the gym, and we're also seeing AJ back in the gym. So this again has me thinking, yes, we could be, and I say could be, we could be in the midst of something good. And I hope we are, because I think that we do I really want to see that fight. I really want to see Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. I think that it's a fight that, look, as I've said before, does it still have the same sort of mass appeal that I think it would have had, you know, say 2021 when they were both, well, they weren't, no, AJ wasn't obviously undefeated, but they were both champions at the time. Does it have the same mass appeal as it did then? For me, absolutely, most certainly no, it doesn't. But it is still a massive fight in the UK. Although probably won't be in the UK if it does happen. They'll probably do it in Saudi Arabia, which I think that's criminal to do a fight like that in Saudi Arabia. I really do, because that fight is a Wembley Stadium bonanza. But I get why. I mean, both guys are going to want a king's ransom. I get it. So, you know, that is what that is. Unfortunately, it's just the way the cookie crumbles, it seems. You know, it really is. In terms of like announcements or anything like that, I would expect we're going to hear something in the next few weeks. It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me, because June is shaping up to be not a quiet month, but by the last couple of months' standards, a reasonably quiet month. Wouldn't shock me if we hear something in June. And this, not me saying this that I know or anything like that, but it genuinely wouldn't. It wouldn't shock me if we did hear something in the month of June. I'm not even going to lie. It wouldn't shock me. I'm trying, for some reason, right, my phone's after signing me out of X, so I'm trying to get my boxing news from X. I normally get it from the Ring magazine and everything boxing. There we go, we're good to go. But yeah, wouldn't shock me if we get an announcement, certainly in the next couple of weeks. But we also got an announcement this week that Dylan White will actually be back. So he is going to make a comeback on the undercard of his prospect, so to speak, Fabio Wardley. You know, not that Fabio Wardley's a prospect now, but Dylan White was the guy who brought him through. So Dylan White making his return on a Frank Warren show. He was meant to obviously fight Joe Joyce back in April. Didn't happen. Bad cut in his hand is what it is. These things happen. So now he's making his return. There's no opponent announced yet. Lawrence Okoli, he is mentioning Dylan White every flipping chance he gets. Like, he is literally not stopping with Dylan White. He is mentioning him every chance he gets. Lawrence Okoli's been mentioning him. I doubt they'll do that. I doubt it, but you never know. I think with Dylan White, he is just holding out for that one big payday. And with Dylan White, I truthfully just think you need to be extra careful with him, because he looks done, beyond done. Like, seriously, he's even sounding bad. You know, I mean, he didn't sound good at that press conference with Joe Joyce, so there's that. It's also been announced that Jack Catterall will face Harlem Eubank at the AO Arena July the 5th in Manchester. So, that's an interesting one. I look, I'll watch it. I'll do a review of it, of course. But I think that fight is going to be more... for the purists, to be honest with you, because both guys are not exactly known for, you know, being the most entertaining when it comes to fights, to be honest with you. They're not. So I think that's going to be more a spectacle for the boxing purists, to be honest with you. But you never know. You never know. There are fights out there that on paper they don't look necessarily amazing. But saying that, they go and they're brilliant. Adelaide versus TKV2 will take place on a Queensbury show. Frank Warren has won the bids for that British heavyweight title fight, so it does mean that Adelaide will have home field advantage. It'll be on a Queensbury show. He won't have to go to Boxer, so that's an interesting one. The WBO have rejected Callum Smith's request for a Dimitri Bivol fight to be ordered for their light heavyweight title next. Callum Smith, we all know, he is the mandatory for Dimitri Bivol, and he has requested that the WBO call that mandatory, to which they have rejected it. Of course, Dimitri Bivol is likely going to have a trilogy fight with Artur Beterbiev, probably in October, probably again in Saudi Arabia. But that is interesting, because we did only hear roughly a week ago that we were getting Yard versus Callum Smith, but Callum Smith trying to go and push that mandatory through. So it's interesting. There's a lot of interesting things going out about now. So I wonder what's going to happen there. Well, the WBO have just basically said no, but yeah, that to me is an interesting one. Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach rematch will take place on August the 16th in Las Vegas, Nevada. That's according to the Ring Magazine's Mike Coppinger. Yeah, look, I think Tank Davis should win this fight second time around. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I saw first. I genuinely, truthfully couldn't believe what I was seeing first time around. But I do think he will. I think Tank will make the necessary improvements. I believe that, personally. I just believe that myself. But let's wait and see. Savannah Marshall. So this is an interesting one. Savannah Marshall, boxer. Chantel Cameron, Queensbury. Or should I say, formerly, of both respective promoters. They have now signed with MVP Promotions. I believe Savannah Marshall is actually going to have a fight on Katie Taylor's undercard. So it's like me and Ada have been saying, Jake Paul is he is mopping these female fighters up. I think what's going to happen is Jake Paul is going to be the guy for female fighters, and therefore he's going to be doing female-only undercards. I've no problem with that. I've got absolutely no problem with having female-only undercards. To be honest with you, you could probably say that's probably a better one. That's probably better to do it like that than to have, a female fight in the middle of an all-male card. I think that the way he's doing it, they're getting their exposure. It's on Netflix. I mean, who wouldn't want that exposure on Netflix? And by all accounts, he's paying these girls very well. So, big up to Jake Paul on that one. Is there much else on? Is there much else to talk about by way of the news? I want this show, I always love Review of the Week, to be over the 20-minute mark. Conor Benn has welcomed a potential fight with Shakur Stevenson after Shakur said he'd be willing to meet him at 155 pounds one day. Whoa. Shakur Stevenson has more talent in one finger than Conor Benn has in his whole body, but at the end of the day, as I've said several times, weight divisions are there for a reason. Shakur Stevenson turned pro at 126 pounds, won his first world title there. That's an increase of nearly 2 stone, 30 pounds, nearly 30 pounds, 28 pounds. That is a leveler when you're talking about, although saying that, Shakur Stevenson, he's such a good boxer. I would probably pick him over Conor Benn at 154, 147 pounds. But goddamn, yeah, man, I did see that Shakur Stevenson was saying that he'd be willing to actually set foot in the ring with Conor Benn, which, credit to him, man. I mean, that's all I got to say on that one. I think in terms of everything else, I think that's pretty much it. Primarily dominated by Dave Allen, Johnny Fischer. I know Anthony Joshua has been praising of Dave Allen's performance, as have a lot of people. Credit to him, absolutely credit to him. Credit to how he conducted himself in the post-fight interview as well. That was brilliant to see. So a lot of good stuff from Dave Allen. For now, I will leave it there. I think pretty much that, again, it's not been a crazy week for boxing this week. It's not been much happening. It's more so kind of all came in one go with the boxing, with the fights. But I will leave it there. People, as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you could, leave a like on this video, smash it, all that good stuff. Hope you have a great week. I am doing something. This is actually 4:30, 25 past 4 on a Sunday time recording this, which is very early for Review of the Week. I normally do it about 7, 8 o'clock in the evening because I had to be somewhere today. I watched the space. watch the space on this one. This one's gonna be good. This one's gonna be good. I think you guys are gonna like. It. It's a pretty good one. But for now, I will leave it there. I hope you all have a great week, man. I hope you whatever you're doing this week, I hope you smash it, and yeah, enjoy it. I'll leave it there. Smash the like button as always. Hit subscribe. Until next time, peace.